Auburn is in a prime spot to flip some elite offensive talent.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Darrell, Dapprich, Montogmery radio legend, hanging out with us as we dap it up today. And Darrell, we'll talk about the improved position groups. There's several. It shows what a good job Auburn has done this offseason. But there's just so much smoke around Auburn flipping several of these top-notch, high-caliber, elite offensive recruits in this upcoming 2025 class. And we'll start with Alvin Henderson, a guy that surprised a bunch of folks. Sounds like Penn State kind of snuck in and made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. But we said it right after he committed. I think you did the show with me the like right after that happened. It's like we weren't buying it. We weren't buying it, and I'm still not buying it. And you're starting to hear more and more smoke that Alvin Henderson's commitment to Penn State, the talented running back from Elba, it's just it doesn't really feel like a commitment to me.
No, a lot of people that, he trusts and I think that he's shared information with now could just be, kids talking that love the recruitment process. And we talked about this. We said he is one guy that really, really savors the recruitment process and being coveted. Yeah. But he has told some people that, he was going to commit to Penn State, flip to Auburn. That's been gotten back to us. There is this whole, I guess I'm a little bit, I always feel like when somebody commits to a school but then is excited to get back on campus for a visit to another school, that the deal's not done, that it's not closed. Yeah. And he was on campus last weekend for a visit. And then Steve Wilfong, who drops those Fong bombs, talks about he just flat out came right out and I wouldn't call it a crystal ball, whatever he calls his, and says he'll flip back to Auburn. He, at the end of the day, he fully expects Henderson to be in that class. And I guess for me and you, that some of the things we heard and some of the things we talked about, none of this surprises us at all.
No, in fact, it's encouraging. This is happening a little quicker than I thought. I thought we would go into the season, or at least back into the visit part of the summer, which is, a month or so away. I thought that's when it would pick up steam again. But there's really not anything really happening right now. And it seems like Alvin Henderson's already kind of itching to get back into the Auburn conversation.
Such a good point, because, a lot of the things that these kids do, they commit off emotion, emotional weekends, emotional feelings.
They get there. They're having such a good time. Like, all right, I want to be a part of this.
Especially if it's during the season. Okay, so when you get there and you go through Tiger Walk as a guest, and you get to be, you're on the sidelines, you're watching the environment at Jordan-Hare when the light show hits. You get in your feels, like they say. And when that happens, you're more apt to say, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to be. It's emotional. That's why coaches are always concerned or a little bit apprehensive about when kids are coming off a high emotionally after a game when they commit, because they feel like it is about feelings and emotions and not a logistical situation to think about. But when you do something like this weekend and you come and you visit and then the buzz starts again and the chatter, I don't know, it makes you almost feel like all along you fall in love with the process, but you already know who you're in love with as far as the school, and they could be different.
Yeah. And so I think Auburn will add Alvin Henderson before it's all said and done, maybe sooner rather than later. I mean, I don't think Wilfong's just dropping predictions just because he thinks it's going to happen 5 months from now. I think he probably feels like there's a little bit of urgency to it, or I don't think he would have done it. I guess I'm assuming there, but also we're seeing this with other elite recruits. Arguably the most elite recruit in the country. When you talk about Julian Lewis, the standout quarterback, Rivals has him as the number one quarterback in the country. Committed to USC, but similar situation in the sense of doesn't really feel like a commitment. I think when it's all said and done, he's part of Auburn's class too. And you just think about, okay, Auburn's already a top 10 class without adding running backs. And we think they're going to add more than one. Without adding their quarterback, they will add a quarterback at some point. Will it be Juju? Will it be someone else? Who knows? But they will add a quarterback. And just the way that they keep track and score all of these things, like those are it's going to help them. It's going to help them raise that number in the class. So to me, if they can get Alvin and they can get Juju to be part of this class, Darrell, especially before the season starts, oh my goodness, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I mean, and again, when USC, their mods and their websites and some of their fan-based message boards, the mods of those, not the fans, come right out and say Auburn's the biggest threat. We're hearing things about Auburn. Typically, that's a really good source when it's the opposing school that he's already committed to. To be perfectly transparent, somebody private messaged me on X and showed me where a mod of Texas had put out something that he has since deleted, where he talked about KJ Lacey as another kid that is a flip candidate, that he said that Auburn's the one to watch for, that he's hearing that's who, he could possibly want to come to Auburn. So again, what's rumor, what's speculation, don't know. But when you start hearing the names and the chatter and the buzz, a lot of times there's a lot of smoke, there's fire. And to go to your point, top prospects, they're flip candidates. And we saw Auburn do that last year. There's a trend with the Riddicks and the Colemans that it's not uncharted territory anymore for Auburn like it used to be to flip these guys. Oh,
it's insane. Yeah. And just for folks who, we used to talk about him a lot. KJ Lacey, the Saraland quarterback, played with Ryan Williams. He's committed to Texas. So that's who Darrell was talking about there. But you're totally right. It just feels so different. It feels so different because even I think it was 247 that reported, what's the guy's name? Jermichael Garrett.
Yes.
Who's a top linebacker, 2026, but he rolled out his top schools. And this is an in-state guy, a Gulf Shores kid. And his top schools that he's going to be deciding between on June 19th is when he's going to make his commitment. But tell me if somebody's missing here, Darrell. This is an in-state kid. This is an Alabama kid. Tell me if anybody's missing from this final list of schools.
Okay.
Auburn, Miami, LSU, Michigan, Mississippi State, North Carolina State, and Tennessee. Who's missing there?
Troy. No, I'm just joking. Alabama. He absolutely is not listing Alabama there, which is very strange to me. Even with coaching staffs flipping and changing, you would still think in-state kids would at least consider that.
This is amazing. This is amazing to me. So Jermichael Garrett, 6'2", 200. This is a 2026 kid. I don't know if I said that.
You did, yeah.
The lowest ranking that he is On3 has him as the 14th linebacker in the class. Everybody else has him higher than that. And then he's a top 10 player in the state across the board, except Rivals has him in 11th. A top 10 player in the state of Alabama lists like 80 schools as his top schools that he's picking from and leaves Alabama out. That's different. That is not, Nick Saban's not there anymore.
Exactly. And I'm still surprised. I get it. I get that there's going to be a drop-off. I get that there's going to be a residual effect when the greatest coach of all time moves on. But you still would think an in-state, the linebacker, and correct me, it's been one of those, it's been kind of a long day. The Mississippi kid that just committed to Auburn a couple weeks ago, that's pretty highly ranked in the linebacking class. His name is escaping me. I get that. A kid from Mississippi, even though he's a really good player.
Sure.
This kid,
Tyler Lockhart.
Yeah. Can't believe I forgot that name because we talked about how linebacker name that is.
Lockhart, are you kidding me? Yeah.
Yeah. But this kid is Alabama. He's from the state of Alabama. It's just, that is very intriguing to me to understand why that was, he was left off there, or Alabama was left off that list. It just doesn't add up, but good for Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers.
100%. So they're staying on it. They're staying on it for sure. And so Auburn did a great spot to flip a lot of these big time playmakers at some point this summer, but definitely before early signing day in December.
Who do you think started the trend on that real quick, Zach? If you were to go back 2 years under Hugh Freeze, not when it was in some other kids under Harshad, but when you think back, I want to see if we're on the same page. Who's the one player that, in my mind, flipped the script on that because he flipped to Auburn?
Did it have to be offense?
Defense.
DeMarcus Riddick.
Kayin Lee. Didn't he flip from Ohio State?
Mm-hmm.
That was a big flip to me. Ohio State, perennial playoff.
Kind of flew under the radar, too, because I'm trying to think. We were so focused on Connor Lew flipping from Miami.
Yeah.
And then there were those the two guys from Montgomery that they ended up going to Bama.
Curtis Perry and the Carver kids. Yeah, the Carver kids.
Yeah, we were so focused on could we get them, and then obviously we didn't. But yeah,
just
Kayin
to me,
Lee
that
kind
seemed
of flew
to
under
change
the radar. It's like a 4-star corner that he's from Georgia, right? And he was committed to Ohio State.
Yep.
That's a player, you know? Yeah, he did kind of fly under the radar. So, yeah, I'll give you that. I think it's great. Auburn, I mean, what they've done this offseason is incredible. Seriously, it's incredible. So many different position groups have improved. What are we going to see from an impact of that in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn? Today's show is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. eBay Motors, Darrell, you know this. It's the best place to buy any sort of part for your car, truck, or SUV. It's just going to be more affordable. You don't have to leave your home. They have over 122 million parts to pick from. You just type in your make and model of your vehicle into your account. I think it's called My Garage under your eBay Motors account, and it's like here's all the stuff that you need. It's so easy to use. Yeah,
I'd like to give a testimonial. We talk about how we have a company vehicle here that's rather dated. It's a delivery truck. It's a flatbed. It needed ball joints. In the past, I would have even thought
it needed
about
what?
Ball joints.
That's not a real thing.
It is a real thing. Type it in eBay Motors and you'll see it. Ball joints.
I'm not typing that in.
So I thought to myself, normally I would have even thought about where would we start, right? And then, of course, being affiliated, I was like, I told the guys that were head of our company fleet, try eBay Motors. And they're trying to track some down with eBay Motors to replace a really old flatbed. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
And it's legit. You can type it in. That's a legit car part.
Yep. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. We were talking before we clicked record, Darrell. Like, okay, the most improved position group, it has to be wide receiver. It has to be. To me, the second most improved position group is linebacker. The third most improved, to me, is offensive line, just because, one, the addition of Percy Lewis, and then just other guys being on the roster already, having time, and that development is going to be there. And that's the same with linebacker as well. It's just these guys all coming back and taking a step forward together is going to be huge.
And depth adds to that as well. We now have depth at both position groups.
Yeah, 100%. But the improvement at wide receiver and the improvement of the offensive line, both with depth and upside and personnel and development, all that's great. But the reason that's so important, and it was such an emphasis by the staff, I still think is getting lost on some Auburn fans. Because it's about making Peyton Thorne as comfortable as possible and just starting a new trend at Auburn, which is crazy that it's taken this long. But a new trend, talked about it with Hank Brown when he was on the show last week, is making it as easy as possible, because quarterback's tough, no matter where you are, but making it as easy as possible for your quarterback. And to me, like when we just think about what Thorne did a year ago, and there were a lot of moments that left us scratching our head or what are you doing? But I just think the improvement that we've seen on the offensive line and at wide receiver, we've said it before, but I just think it's going to be enough, Darrell, when it's all said and done.
There are 3 ways that you can help your quarterback in the offseason be more efficient and more productive. To me, the most important is the offensive line. I know some will say receivers, but you could have the best receivers in the country, and if you can't get the ball off, it doesn't matter. Of course, you could have all day to throw the football, and your receivers have the dropsies too, and that doesn't matter. But I think you see scenario 1 played out more than scenario 2. And then the third area is you could improve your quarterback play by taking some pressure off of him and getting an elite running back room. Auburn's already had that. So we've already seen that play out, that having really good running backs did not really advance the way that Peyton Thorne threw the football last year. So they addressed the other two and addressed them significantly. Again, you better have a stable of running backs that can take the pressure off and not, you got to have the threat of the run. I feel like I don't care if people think you're going to throw it all day. Defenses can scheme that.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, we have the running back situation. What was lacking? Offensive line, which got it better last year. But you make a key point that people are going to gloss over and they don't need to. And I caught it and it perked my ears up.
Ooh.
Yes, we have the addition of guys like Lewis on this offensive line. But the rest of the guys that came back that are used to playing together have developed rapport, continuity, and chemistry. That's one. They're comfortable next to each other. Like I'm comfortable next to you in this little screen box here. Number two, they are going to get better, hopefully. I know that I sound simplistic sometimes when I just think that somebody will improve from one year to the next, but I'm a big believer in that. I just think when you get older, you get reps, you get more experience, you have a coach that you're familiar with under another year. It seems to think that you would improve. So the existing guys should get better.
Yeah, and the difference is that didn't always happen at Auburn. It didn't always happen on the offensive line. But Jake Thornton I think he's worthy of that. I think he demands enough respect where it's like the longer you play for Coach Thornton until we see otherwise, the better you're going to be as a football player and specifically an offensive lineman. I think he's deserved that credit and that assumption so far.
That's why I said it would be safe to assume that's the case. But I can remember in years past, the big punchline was, hey, the good news for Auburn is they returned 4 of their 5 offensive linemen, comma. The bad news for Auburn is they returned 4 of their 5 offensive linemen. It was that old joke, right? It was like, is that really a strength that you returned 4 of your 5 guys? It
seemed like during the Gus Malzahn era, especially like the second half, it seemed like we had the same offensive line, like pretty much like 3 years in a row. And it's like, well, maybe this is the year they all take a step forward. And it just never really materialized.
But most of the time, that's a positive. That's guys getting better, getting coached up, getting more mature, playing with each other, getting experience. And I think when you look at these guys, how you can tell if that's an indicator, Zach, is did they improve during the year, previous year?
Look at Xavier Miller. I mean, Darrell, I think there's a very real chance by the end of this season, we're not going to recognize who Xavier Miller has become when you look back at what he was when he first got here last spring. I think it's going to be a drastically different player, a drastically different human, and it's going to be a guy that I think the NFL is going to be like, we want him. We want this version of Xavier Miller. I'm very high on him, and I think he was kind of put in a situation where they're like, this guy's so good, we're going to play him too early. We're going to deal with it, and he wasn't really the issue last year. I mean, I think there were some times where, like any offensive lineman, there were times where, like in games that he had that weren't great, but to me, he was just so far ahead of schedule. And who does he get to work under and learn from on the other side? Percy Lewis.
Yes.
There's not many people that Xavier Miller can talk to that go through life like just a ginormous human being with all of this like potential. I mean, what an opportunity for him to get to learn from Percy.
Well, I think
it's huge too.
I think it speaks volumes too, Zach, and you can agree with this. But halfway through the year, Auburn loses its transfer portal senior 5-year guy, Avery Jones, who they went out and plucked to be the center. He goes down from injuries. Did you see a drop off? I didn't.
No.
So that tells me that the best is yet to come.
And I would say Auburn's center position is better off now than it was after they got Avery a year ago.
It's been a while since I felt as good about the center position at Auburn on an offensive line, a really long time. And he's only going to get better. And again, there was no drop off. He gets plugged in the 6th game, and boom, Auburn, just goes on a little winning streak. The running game goes up a notch. So I think that bodes well for what he's going to do next year as well.
The same way, it's a little different because of the tone. The tone is different, but I think the idea is the same and the words are the same. When you ask teammates about Connor Lew, it's kind of the same way they act when you ask them about Cam Coleman. Now, Cam Coleman, like as far as, Moss and people, that's going to be a different type of reaction than it is, just kind of doing. I mean, center is a pretty like unsexy position, right? Like, you make the block, you seal somebody out, and that's it. That's the play. Not everybody sees that. Mm-mm. But the way people talk about Connor Lew, it's the same, where it's just like so much respect and so much of like, this guy's got it. Let's see what he can do with it. It's kind of in a similar vein there. So we'll see what Connor Lew can do. But yeah, the offensive line and the receiver room, there's just so much improvement. And I think sometimes like it's not just about improving those rooms. It's about improving those rooms so your quarterback can be better. And I think they're going to do that. Same can be said on the defense. Same can be said on the defensive side of the ball. We mentioned linebackers being probably the second most improved group on this team. Let's sprinkle some stuff on that in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Darrell, when you look at the linebacker room, we talk about the addition of Dorian Maiusi, which I think is going to be a depth piece going into spring. I would have thought he had a chance to start, but Austin Keys really turned it on, and him playing for DJ Durkin at Ole Miss previously, like that, it makes sense. I probably should have been less critical on that, but the fact of the matter is, you get Eugene Asante back, you get Austin Keys back, who we pray stays healthy at the start of the year because he turned it on down the stretch. Dorian Maiusi, Robert Woodyard turned it on. I'm so glad he didn't hit the transfer portal. And then obviously we got the young guys with DeMarcus Riddick and DJ Barber. And to me, this is the deepest linebacker room. And Auburn's had some good linebackers, but they'd be in situations where they'd only play like 2 or 3 guys and they'd play like 80 snaps a game. I can't wait to see what this rotation looks like because of how improved this linebacker room is. And let's don't forget, DJ Durkin is going to be over these linebackers as well, and he's an exceptional coach. He's got an exceptional track record. The sky is the limit for this room, seriously.
You had talent, you had depth, and you had elite coaching, which is a niche that DJ Durkin loves linebackers. And don't forget, too, you still have the possibility of a Khalil Jacobs who's out there and hasn't chosen a school yet to transfer from South Alabama. If he comes to this linebacking room, man, it's close. It's neck and neck in the most improved position room. So, yeah, you address things along the defensive line because you had to, because there were holes there. There weren't many holes at the linebacker position. They got returning guys. They got a recruiting class that came in. Linebacking play is such a fun. When people talk about, okay, what's a position you really keep your eye on the offensive side of the ball? People love watching receivers make great catches. From a defensive side, I know that defensive backs and that's sexy, and receiver, safeties and corners, but the linebackers, because of having to stop the run and drop back into coverage sometimes with the elite tight ends, so crucial. And now Auburn has the depth. They have the coaching, talent, depth, like I started this with. So I think that at the end of the day, it's going to be a fun group to watch. I don't think that Auburn's going to see – I love Asante, I love Keys, but not that much of a drop-off if they start shuttling people in and out. You're going to be able to play a lot of bodies and with different specialties, and it's going to be fun to watch. I cannot wait to just watch the linebacker, pick a position group when you're covering them and go, okay, I want to just watch these linebackers attack and eat. So I think it's going to be special. I really do.
Yeah. There's something about linebackers too, where like when one of them's kind of coming on, like you kind of remember it. Like I'll never forget in the season opener against Clemson several years ago, like Deshaun Davis's coming out party. Like everybody remembers that. It's like, well, this guy, like they can't do anything about it. He's everywhere. I think we're going to have that type of impact from Eugene Asante. We saw him take that step forward from last year or 2 years ago to last year. And I think we're going to see a similar thing this upcoming year because he's going into the offseason. It's like, you are the center of this defense. And I also think DJ Durkin, no offense to other coaches, but I just think DJ Durkin's his track record's insane. So all in all, a really good spot for Auburn's linebackers to be in. Let us know, what are your expectations down below for Auburn's linebacker room or the offensive line or the receivers, any of the position groups that we talked about today. Darrell, how can people check out everything that you've got going on?
You can follow me at X. It's at DAP6410. And then Wednesdays and Fridays with you here on Locked On Auburn.
Yes. And thank you to you, Darrell, for filling in for me next week. You and Lindsay are going to hold down the fort next week. I can't wait to listen to y'all talk while I'm on a beach somewhere. That's going to be very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
You enjoy yourself. Don't be listening to us talk. You be on the beach listening to your wife talk.
Yeah, that's right.
The only voice you need to hear for the next week, my friend.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. Please like the video. Please subscribe. And we'll see you tomorrow. This has been Locked On Auburn.